Right now, somewhere in the world, a plane is in the air. A surgeon is mid-operation. A nuclear reactor is being monitored. A baby is being born. And in every single one of those moments, a human being is present, necessary, irreplaceable. But what if they weren't? What if, in one silent instant, every single human on Earth simply vanished? No war, no disease, no slow decline, just gone. What would happen next would be far stranger than any apocalypse you have ever imagined. 1 minute later, 1 minute. That is all it takes for the first wave of chaos to begin. Cars lose their drivers mid-highway. They drift, coast, and slam into barriers. Streetlights each other. Most slow down and stop on their own. But on bridges, on mountain roads, on city overpasses, some go over the edge. Planes are the more terrifying story. At any given moment, approximately 9,700 commercial aircraft are in the sky. The moment your hands leave the controls, autopilot keeps most of them flying. But autopilot cannot land a plane. It cannot respond to turbulence the way a trained pilot can, and it was never designed to fly forever. Within minutes, some planes begin to drift off course. Others begin descending with no one to catch them. Factories keep running. Assembly lines keep moving. Machines keep pressing, cutting, welding. The world does not stop just because you left it. It just keeps going, confused, without direction, like a body still twitching after the mind has gone dark. 1 hour later, your electrical grid is one of the most complex machines ever built. It requires constant human oversight. Every hour of every day, engineers monitor load, balance supply against demand, and make thousands of micro adjustments to keep the voltage stable. Without those adjustments, the system starts to wobble. Within an hour, the first substations begin to fail. Overloaded lines trip their own circuit breakers. In some regions, the grid goes down fast. In others, it holds for a few more hours before cascading failures pull it apart like a thread being pulled from a sweater. When power goes, everything that depends on it goes with it. Traffic lights go dark, refrigerators stop humming, hospitals running on backup generators begin to drain their fuel. Water treatment plants lose the pumps that push clean water through pipes. The world you built in 10,000 years of civilization begins to power down in less than 60 minutes. 24 hours later, a day has passed. The cities are silent in a way that has never existed before. Not quiet, silent. No engines, no voices, no distant sirens, just wind and animals. Your pets are among the first to feel your absence in a devastating way. Dogs locked inside apartments pace, whine, then begin to panic. Some have water. Most do not have enough food. Livestock and industrial farms are trapped in feeding systems that no longer function. Billions of chickens, pigs, and cattle begin to suffer almost immediately, confined in structures built entirely around human management. Meanwhile, at nuclear power plants around the world, something slow and dangerous has begun. Reactors require active cooling. Without human operators, backup systems kick in. But backup systems were designed to buy time, not to run forever. Researchers like Rodney Ewing at Stanford have spent careers studying what happens when nuclear infrastructure is left unattended. The answer is not reassuring. Within a day, some plants begin moving toward conditions that operators would recognize as early-stage crisis. 1 week later, 7 days, your cities are now flooding. Not from rain, from below. Beneath every major city is a network of tunnels, basements, subway systems, and underground infrastructure constantly being pumped dry. New York City alone requires pumps running 24 hours a day to keep its subway tunnels from filling with groundwater. Without those pumps, water rises, quietly, steadily, inevitably. Within a week, the deepest tunnels are submerged. Lower floors of buildings begin to take on water. The streets above stay dry for now, but the foundations underneath are softening. In coastal areas, without maintained seawalls and drainage systems, tidal water begins pushing further inland than it has in decades. The infrastructure that holds civilization above water level was never designed to be permanent. It was designed to be maintained, and maintenance requires you. 1 month later, a month without you, and nature has already started moving back in. Not dramatically, not the way disaster movies show it, quietly. A crack in the pavement that used to get filled, a drain that used to get cleared, a field that used to get mowed. Grass begins to push through asphalt, vines begin climbing walls, birds nest in places they were always chased from. Ecologist E.O. Wilson spent his life documenting how rapidly ecosystems recover when human pressure is removed. The answer, he found again and again, was faster than anyone expected. Within a month, deer are walking through suburban streets. Foxes move into garden sheds. In some cities, rivers that ran brown and slow from industrial runoff begin to clear as the inputs stop. Your absence, it turns out, is a gift to almost everything else alive on this planet. The air is already cleaner, the noise is gone, and the animals, slowly, are beginning to reclaim what was theirs first. 10 years later, a decade has passed. Stand in what used to be a city, and you would barely recognize it. Windows are broken now, not by vandals, but by temperature swings. Glass expands in summer heat and contracts in winter cold. Without maintenance, the seals fail. Water gets in. Freeze-thaw cycles crack concrete. Buildings that were designed to last 100 years with upkeep begin showing serious structural strain after just 10 without it. In colder climates, entire neighborhoods are buckled and heaved from frost damage to foundations. Fires have swept through many areas. Without human fire suppression, natural and accidental fires burn freely. Forests that were suppressed for decades begin their long, messy process of returning to something older. The nuclear plants, depending on their design and their backup systems, have by now either stabilized into a slow, cold shutdown or experienced partial meltdowns. Researchers studying the aftermath of Chernobyl, including Timothy Mousseau of the University of South Carolina, found that even in heavily contaminated zones, wildlife returns, adapts, and in many cases thrives in ways that seem to contradict everything we assumed. Life is more stubborn than any disaster. 100 years later, 100 years, most of what you built above ground is either gone or unrecognizable. Wooden structures have long since rotted or burned. Steel has rusted through in humid climates. Skyscrapers and coastal cities have been battered by storms, no longer deflected by seawalls, and have begun to collapse floor by floor, slowly, like giants kneeling. Forests have swallowed highways. In what used to be the American Midwest, prairie grasses have returned across millions of acres. In Europe, ancient forests are pushing back into agricultural land that was cleared 1,000 years ago. The rivers run clean. The oceans, freed from overfishing and pollution inputs, have begun recovering fish populations that were in catastrophic decline at the moment of your disappearance. 100 years without you and the planet is healing faster than any climate model dared to predict. Not because you were the enemy, but because absence, it turns out, is the most powerful conservation tool that ever existed. 1,000 years later, 1,000 years, almost everything you built is gone. The great cities are rubble buried under meters of soil and vegetation. The highways are ghost lines beneath forests. Your plastics, the material you assumed would outlast everything, are fragmenting into microparticles and slowly being consumed by bacteria that evolved specifically to eat them, a process that researchers like Anja Malawi Brandon have documented beginning even within your own lifetime. Steel structures have rusted entirely in most climates. Concrete, without maintenance, has crumbled back toward aggregate and dust. What remains? Stone, certain ceramics, some deep underground structures, the foundations of the largest buildings, buried now, detectable only by the way plant growth follows old street grids, and in a few places, almost impossibly, some underground vaults, libraries buried in rock, seed banks frozen in Arctic permafrost. The things you built specifically to outlast you are the only things that do. 10,000 years later, 10,000 years. This is the scale at which geologists think. It is also roughly the same amount of time that separates you from the first human settlements. In that context, your entire civilization, every city, every road, every satellite, every book is a thin line in the rock, a layer of anomaly. Future archaeologists, if they exist, would find it the same way you find the boundary between geological eras, a sudden change in the composition of sediment, elevated carbon, traces of synthetic materials, an unusual concentration of certain metals. They would call it the Anthropocene layer. They would study it the way you studied the iridium layer left by the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. An event, a boundary, a before and after. They might debate what caused it. They might wonder what you were like. They might find one of your satellites still drifting in high orbit, where atmospheric drag does not exist, slowly circling a planet that has completely forgotten you. And from the surface, 10,000 years after the last human voice, something would look up at the night sky and see that tiny moving light and not know what it was. Here is the part that should stay with you. Right now, today, a plane is in the air. A reactor is being monitored. A pump is running deep beneath a city street. All of it held together, not by systems or machines, but by the quiet, continuous decision of individual human beings to show up and keep things running. Your civilization is not a structure. It is a habit. And like all habits, it exists only as long as someone chooses to maintain it. The world does not need you to survive, but everything you built needs you to continue. And tonight, when you flip a light switch and the room fills with light, that is not electricity. That is 10,000 years of accumulated human effort, running on borrowed time, held together by the simple fact that someone, somewhere, is still paying attention.